Hey guys, welcome back to Long Range Shooters of Utah. In today's episode, we're going to teach you how to install a scope on your precision rifle. This is something we've gotten a ton of questions about. Finally, we're getting a chance to do that as part of our series about the Ruger Precision Rifle and also our review of the Viper PST Gen 2. So be sure to look at our other videos about the RPR and also the PST separately. And then today we're going to talk specifically about how to mount a scope on your precision rifle. All right, so the first step, let's talk about the different tools that you may need in order to get your scope installed. So at a most basic level, what you're going to need is some kind of a torque wrench. Probably the most popular torque wrench out there that most guys are going to have is this Wheeler fat wrench. You can pick these up at Cabela's. I don't recall exactly how much they are. I want to say they're definitely less than 50 bucks, somewhere between 20 and 50. I actually don't recall. Apologize about that. I'll put that in the notes. But these are really nice. It's an inch-pound torque wrench. That's what you're going to want when you're installing both rings and mounting the rings to your rail. Generally, when you're mounting to the rail, it's going to require 45 to 65 inch-pounds, depending on the rings themselves. And then installing the rings themselves, the individual screws on top of the rings, you're looking at probably 15 to 20 inch-pounds. So make sure you're inch-pounds and not foot-pounds. Foot-pounds is what you use to put a tire on your car. So inch-pounds. So the Wheeler fat wrench is a very popular option. It comes with a lot of the tool heads that you're going to need, or the different like screwdrivers, torque heads, and so on, that you're going to need to install both the rings and the rail on your rifle. Also really good to have for making sure that your action is torqued good into your chassis and so on. So the Wheeler fat wrench is a good option. If you're a competitor and you have a limited amount of space and a limited amount of weight that you can carry in a competition, definitely check out the Fix-It sticks. These are definitely a huge step up from the Wheeler fat wrench in that it's a much more compact little package. Comes in this little kit here. It's got all the different tool heads you'll need, just like the fat wrench does. The one thing I really like about it is it's very precise. You can grab that little guy. It's amazing for adjusting the zero on your turrets on your scope. You also have, it works a little bit differently in that you have individual kind of socket heads, if you will, for different inch-pound settings. So this one happens to be 65 inch-pounds. There's a 45, 25, 15, and so on. So either one of these will do the job. This one's definitely more compact. These are about $165, so quite a bit more expensive, but very, very nice, very compact. And then, of course, the Wheeler fat wrench. So you're definitely going to need a torque wrench. Don't just guess. These have very specific torque settings. In talking to the reps at Vortex, one of the most common problems they have, or warranty issues they have, is people that have bought a scope and then install it and they think they got to torque it on there as hard as they possibly can, and they end up damaging their optic and having to send it back. So make sure you read in your owner's manual and you know exactly what those torque settings should be for that particular rail, that particular ring, and for that particular optic. So we've got that. Next thing that you're going to need is you're going to want to make sure that your scope is nice and level. In order to do that, you're going to need some kind of a level kit. A lot of times if you go to your local sporting goods stores, your Cabela's, your Sportsman's Warehouse, and so on, they'll have these tools available. They'll also typically, if you buy the rifle there, they'll install the scope for you. I wouldn't necessarily say that all of them are going to do the best job at that. I think watching this video and having the right tools, or finding somebody who's a precision rifle shooter and letting them do it, you're going to have a little bit better result in general. So either go borrow a kit from somebody. Most precision rifle shooters are really cool about letting people borrow the tools they need to do these kinds of things, or if you go to your local range, there'll be people there that can help you get set up. So this particular kit here is also from Wheeler. It's a really nice setup. You can take, and I'll put links to all these things in the description of the video so you can purchase these on Amazon and Brownells. So you can take this actually mounts up here on the barrel, so you can establish your level, and then you've got these little guys that sit here. So once I have the rifle level, I know it's there, I can clamp this onto the barrel, and that way I can remove this, put my scope on, put this on top, make sure that my scope is level with my rifle. So these little kits are very, very nice. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. There's a lot of different styles of kits. This is a kit from Extreme Hardcore Gear. It's a little bit different. This little piece here actually fits inside the action of the rifle. And then this one would be what you would set on top of the turret of your scope. And then you just match those two in order to level the rifle. So lots of options out there, but definitely either get yourself a kit or borrow a kit to ensure that your scope is level. So the other thing that we're going to be doing as part of this install is we're going to be installing an anti-cant bubble level on your optic. If you're not sure why we're going to install that, you need to watch our video on why every rifle needs an anti-cant bubble level. When you're shooting long range, if that rifle is even slightly canted, you can be off as much as 6 inches, a foot, even further at 1,000 yards. So check out that video. It'll blow your mind how big of a difference it makes having a bubble level. So part of this process is not only making sure that the optic is nice and level when we install it, but also making sure we have a bubble level installed on this rifle scope, that it is level, so that in the future when we're out shooting, we're also level. So we'll go through how to install that bubble level. So those are the tools that you're going to need. For the most part, that should cover everything. Let's talk a little bit about the individual components that we've decided to use. So part of this is going to be a review about the Viper PST Gen 2. So this scope just came out this year. It's 2017. Definitely one of the most popular rifle scopes out there, especially for guys just getting started in precision rifle shooting or long range shooting. Because of the price point, they're somewhere between the low end ones, $600 up to maybe $1,200 for like this guy that I'm holding here. And the Gen 2 definitely came out with a lot of new great features. It's got much larger turrets. Definitely looks a lot more like a more expensive optic like a Night Force or a Vortex Razor Gen 2. It has a much larger eyepiece here. You do have a zero stop system included as well. You've got illumination on this one. This happens to be their 5-25, and it is the illuminated one. This is the second focal plane version. We have a front focal plane coming as well. But overall, I'm really impressed with the upgrades that they've made to this. The only one thing I don't love about it is just the look of the eyepiece here. I think it's kind of ugly. But other than that, I've been very impressed with the glass. It's been overall a great scope, just a little bit of time that I've had it and been using it. So I think this is a great partner for the RPR. It's really what most guys are probably going to be looking for to get started into the sport, is something along the lines of an RPR, and then the Viper PST is a great choice. So that's the optic that we chose to use for this. And then let's talk about the rings. So it makes absolutely no sense to have an amazing rifle and an amazing scope and a piece of junk holding the two together. So it's really important that you get a good quality ring. These rings from Vortex, their precision rifle rings, are excellent. Make sure that you get the proper size for the optic that you're using. Also, before you install any rings or install a scope, it's always advisable to get some alcohol wipes or some cotton balls with some rubbing alcohol and clean the inside of this and also clean the scope. In the manufacturing process, they can be grease and oil on those that can cause this to slip. So we want to make sure it's a good contact surface. When you're buying a really good scope ring like this, you shouldn't have to lap the rings. You'll see on the shelf at Cabela's and things, there'll be lapping kits where you can take and basically make sure that these two are lined up properly. And you know, that's really not necessary for cheap rings. These good quality rings, you really don't have to do that. Vortex get these made by Seekins Precision, which makes a great ring. So those are the rings that we chose for this particular review and for this particular rifle. So I think that covers everything that you're going to need. Let's go ahead and start with the process of getting the rifle scope installed and ensuring that we've got it set up properly for our body. All right, guys, so step one. The one thing you absolutely do not want to do is you don't want to spend an hour getting this scope mounted and then go shoot it and have it be all over the place and then realize that the rail is loose. So even though it came from the factory, it should be torqued properly. Always go through and check the rail. There's nothing worse than spending all that time and finding out that the very foundation of the optic is out of whack. So we did a lot of research trying to figure out what the torque specs were from Ruger. Didn't have the time to reach out to them and ask them what it was, but we watched a couple other reviews and some guys that did a lot of research. They said anything greater than 25 inch-pounds. Talking to the other guys here at the range, we all think probably 40 to 50 inch-pounds is probably a safer bet, but you kind of got to feel it out. You definitely don't want to over-torque things and strip out the screws. That would be horrible, especially since it's in your receiver and it'd be a big headache to fix. So just be careful, but make sure these are good and tight. You want to make sure that base is good and tight. That is the foundation of your optic. So step one is getting the rings and installing them onto the rail. Then we're going to take our scope and put them on. One other thing you got to remember to do is install your bubble level before you put everything else on. There's nothing worse, once again, than getting through the whole process of getting this all set up and then go, oh crap, I got to put my bubble level on. Now we chose to go with the Low Pro from Vortex. They sponsored us with the PST here. So we went with the Low Pro bubble level from Vortex. They also have their larger version that's a little bit cheaper. These run about 50 bucks, the other are about 25. The $25, $30 ones are quite a bit bulkier and they will not go on the scope if it's already mounted to the rail unless you're using really, really high rings. For the RPR, the recommended height is the high rings, at least in this particular Vortex version. So you're going to want to have the rings set up properly in order to clear this rail on the front. So a high ring is really what we'd advise for. And then make sure that you get the anti-cant bubble level installed on the scope, or at least get it on there before you go ahead and mount the scope on the rifle. So we'll get that on there. We've already gone in and checked the rail, made sure it's good and tight. Once again, you want to use a torque wrench to make sure that you're setting these up properly. So step one is going to be installing this on the scope. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to want to place mine. I've kind of already tinkered with this a little bit, so I know on the back is going to be where I want it. So I'm going to go ahead and put it here on the back. Snap it on there. And I'm not going to tighten this down because obviously we're going to want to level it up before we're done. And we're also probably going to have to move it around once we figure out where the rings are going to go. So I've just got it on there kind of hand tight. So we've got it mounted on there now. So next step, let's go ahead and get these rings. So what you're going to want to do is pick kind of where you think they should go, and then I'm going to show you how to adjust them to make sure they're where they are. Now make sure that you've got your bolts here on the same side. So I'm going to move that other one back. All right, so now that I've kind of got those, I'm guessing really where to put them. I'm going to go ahead and place my scope on there. I think I'm going to loosen this up so I can move it around. So there's going to be a fair amount of trial and error in the beginning. Now, one thing you got to be very, very careful of is putting a scope in there on the loose rings and then having it fall off and damage your optic. You certainly don't want to do that. So you want to take and kind of hand tighten these, because we're probably going to have to move them. So you do want to push them up against one side, so the side opposite of where the screws are. And then we're just going to do those hand tight, just so the scope doesn't fall off onto the bench and get dinged up. So we can go ahead and set that in there. Now what I'm going to do, you're going to see me do this a lot throughout the review, is what I want to make sure is that my eye relief is correct. So what I'm going to do, the way I like to do this, is to get behind the rifle, and I'm actually going to close my eyes. So I'm going to get behind the rifle, I'm going to close my eyes, I'm going to get in a really natural, comfortable position. One of the things I like to do is put that cheek rest right underneath my cheekbone so that every time I put it on there, I'm always repeating in the same place. More consistency, more accuracy. So I'm going to put my cheek right on that cheek rest, and I'm going to open my eye. What I'm looking for are two things. Really right now we're looking for one thing. As I move that scope closer to my eye or further away, at some point it's going to go black. But when I get it inside that sweet spot, it's going to be nice and clear edge to edge. So if I get my face down here, open my eye, that's not too bad. I can slide my face back and it's even clearer. So I know that I need to scoot the optic forward. So I'm going to move this to that side, put it on there again. It's always good to have a hand on it. Close my eyes, put my face on it, open, and now it's still too close. So I'm going to move it forward a little bit more. Close my eye, open it, I'm clear edge to edge. Try it again, clear edge to edge. So now that I have it where it's clear edge to edge, I want to find out where within the range where it's clear am I sitting. Because if I'm clear at this extreme edge of this section where it's clear, then if I move just a little bit, then it's going to be black again. So I want to make sure I'm kind of in between that spot. So I'm going to get my face down here, get comfortable, open my eye, should be clear. Now I'm going to move back a little bit, move forward a little bit. And it seems like I've actually seated it really nicely where I want to have it. I'm right in the middle of between where it goes black and where it goes black. I'm kind of right in the middle as I move my face forward and back. So I know that right here from a forward and back stance, I'm good. So you may have to take, and let's say that I ran into this upper ring, I may have to move it forward and adjust and kind of jockey it around until I find a spot where my rings are placed properly. They're not running into my turrets, they're not getting in the way, and I'm still able to have the right eye relief. So now that I know how far front and back I want to go, I can then take and kind of position my bubble level. So one other thing to keep in mind as you're putting in this rings is you want to try to have them, you know, as far apart as possible, just because it's more stable. It's just going to be better. It's going to put less torque on your optic in case someone were to grab it or whatever else. So these are about as far forward there as I can go, and right here looks pretty good. So I feel good about that. I'm going to go ahead and put on my caps, and then we can get those screwed on. So now that I know that it's front and back, looks good, I can go ahead and torque the rings on the side, but before I do that, I want to go ahead and at least hand tighten these. So once again, that my scope does not fall off onto the concrete and break. Now, kind of like when you're installing a tire on a car, you want to make sure and kind of go crisscross. So do this bolt, then that bolt, then this bolt, then that bolt. So you get a nice even cinch on it. You'll also, as we torque these down, you're going to want to watch the gap here and make sure that you've got it torqued evenly. You don't want one side touching and one side open. You want both of them to have a little bit of space, so it's nice and even and consistent. Okay, so now that I've got those kind of hand tight, I'm going to go ahead and bring this down. Now, as I said before, torque settings on this is absolutely critical. That's one of the biggest reasons for people having to send their scopes into Vortex for repair, is because they didn't torque them properly. Now, their recommendation on the bolts here that go into the scope base, or that attach to the rail, is 45 to 50 inch-pounds. So I'm going to crank this up here to 45, maybe like 48, split the difference. Once again, this is inch-pounds, not foot-pounds. Just make sure that's good and seated on there properly. Kind of slowly cinch them up. Now I've got them all cinched. You hear that distinctive click when you reach the right setting. So there we go. I'm going to get down here and just check, make sure that it's still in a good place for me. Okay. All right. Now, what we're going to want to do is start the process of leveling out the scope. So let's dive in and do that. All right, so now that we've got the kind of the front to back positioning of the scope settled in, we're going to go ahead and get the scope leveled. So once again, there are a lot of different tools you can use for this. I really like this Wheeler kit. So what this has is kind of a clamshell type design. So what we do is we take that and we actually hook it right there on the barrel. And you don't have to have it perfect, because it has a neat little kind of cam up here that allows you to adjust it. So once we get it cinched on and get it pretty close, get it good and tight, then it's got a spring in here in this cam, and as I do this, we're going to be able to level it. So we'll leave that for a second. Now let's come back up here. So on the PST, it does have this little fiber optic bar, so you kind of have to put the level in front of that. Okay. One thing also we need to do here that we didn't do, and we need to figure out a way to do, is to level up the rifle first, and then we're going to set this. That's going to become our standard for being level, and then we're going to come back and level the scope. So I've got an Evo bipod on here. Just setting that on top of the rail. Bring it back here, get it good and level. Lock it in with the pod lock. Let go of it, make sure that it stays. Now you saw from other video just how finicky it can be and how important it is to have the rifle good and level, or have the scope good and level when you're shooting. So it's nice and perfect now. I can take and adjust this and make sure that it is in sync with this one. So now I've got that good and level. So that's going to become my standard. That's going to become my reference. So now if I put this on top, we can see that the scope is way out of whack. So I can then take, these are should already be loose, or pretty loose. Okay. We can go ahead and rotate the optic so that it's level. Now, in a perfect world, we would be able to then tighten all these down and it would stay exactly where we set it and we'd be done. The problem is that when we tighten these down, it's probably going to rotate the scope, and it's incredibly infuriating, but it does that. There's only one kind of ring I've ever seen that doesn't do that, and it's made by American Rifle Company. Their rings are incredible. So with these rings, what we're going to do is, once again, kind of like when you're changing a tire in a car, you're going to do kind of a star pattern or cross pattern. So we're going to go in, now that we've got this nice and level, and we'll kind of make sure all these different bolts are tightened down evenly. Once again, take note on the side, the little gap here. Make sure that it's nice and even on both sides and that one side isn't getting way out of whack of the other side. They both should have a gap. Neither one should be touching. So let's get these kind of hand tight, and then we'll start torquing it. See there, I torqued it too much on one side and not enough on the other. It's kind of a tedious process, but it's worth doing right. Give yourself plenty of time at the range to do this and make sure that you're doing a good job. So I've got it on there. It's like it's moved a little bit. Let's make sure this one's still good. That one's moved a little bit. So now that we've got it all hand tight, this is going to become increasingly difficult to keep where it's supposed to be. So our reference bubble is good. This one's pretty close. So as I start torquing on this, it's probably going to move. So if I torque this side, it should move it the way I want it to go. So I'm going to do a little bit on this side, a little bit on that side. Looks like it still needs to go that way a little bit. Still in the middle. Okay, and then let's talk about torque too. So we want to make sure that we're torquing this to the right spec. So the spec on the Vortex rings is 15 to 18 inch-pounds. So we're going to set our Wheeler fat wrench down here to about 18, 17, 18. Still good and level, still level there. That one's good. That one tightened a little bit. That one tightened a little bit. That one did. We're still level. Good, 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 and good. Still look very good on the level. So that actually went really smooth. So it didn't take too much time, too much work to get that leveled up right, but that's how you do it. And if it takes you 2, 3, 4 times as long as that, that's actually pretty normal. It's kind of a pain, especially as you start tightening these. It's going to move that back and forth. It kind of takes a little bit of time and experience to get where you know what, when you torque on this, what it's going to do to the bubble. But we've got it good and level. We can then again go and check here on the rail, assuming that it's good and level. It looks like it's off just a little bit. Ideally, we want to come back here and check. There we go. So that one we can set right on the rail of the gun. It's level there. Good there. So the rail of the gun to the top of the scope, we are good. So that's pretty much it, except that we got to now get our bubble level on our scope leveled so that we know when we're out shooting that we are level to the earth. Now some guys will argue and say, oh, I can tell by just looking at the ground. Well, guess what? How many places are naturally just perfectly level? Not very many. So that's why we need a bubble level. And if you don't think it affects very much, watch our video about why every rifle needs a bubble level, and you'll see just how much it does affect shots at long range. So see, even this thing, as I tighten it down, it started to move a little bit. So I'm going to start with my bubble kind of off to the side a little bit. As I tighten it, it'll center itself. There we go. Okay. All right, so that's really it. We've got the optic leveled. We can go ahead and double check it here. Good and level. You can take and put this on our rail. Good and level. Level on my gun. And it's a little bit off. I'm going to adjust that a little bit. This little thing is obnoxious. Yep, good. So now we're all set up. Good and level, we can start shooting. Once again, I'll put the links for all these little tools and things that we use, like the Wheeler leveling system here, as well as the Wheeler fat wrench, fix-it sticks, and the extreme hardcore gear. All those in the comments, and put links in there where you can buy direct. Hey guys, one last thing that I forgot to cover when we were talking about different options when it comes to you know, kits that you can buy or tools you can buy to help you level your scope and install your scope. So one of the things that I can't believe I didn't mention was a plumb bob. That's probably the cheapest and even probably the most accurate way to really make sure that your scope is level. The one nice thing about this particular method is it's really cheap. You can find some household items and create your own plumb bob, and you know that it's going to be spot on right, and it's actually a little bit easier to use than even some of these kits are. So as you can see here, this is kind of very rudimentary, but I've taken a simple crescent wrench and tied it on the end of a little bit of paracord here, and I've basically created a plumb bob. So what this is doing is it's basically ensuring that the gravity is pulling this straight down to the earth. So what I would do is set this out at, say, 25 yards, 50 yards, 100 yards, whatever, wherever that I can see it. You may have to put maybe a piece of fluorescent poster board behind it or something like that so you can make sure and see this line. I've hung it off my kid's swing set in the backyard. I've done all sorts of things. But basically you're going to hang this line. You're going to make sure that it's nice and still. This doesn't work well if it's windy. So make sure that it's nice and still. You can even go buy yourself a real plumb bob at Harbor Freight or at Home Depot. But basically you're hanging this here. Gravity's going to make sure that line is perfectly straight up and down. And then you simply look through your optic and make sure that your vertical crosshair is directly in line with that cord. If it is, you're level. So super easy, super inexpensive, cheap way to ensure that your rifle is level. All right, so the next order of business is getting the stock of this thing set up properly for your particular body, right? So one thing that you can do, that you can adjust, that's really cool about this, and this is really an innovative piece of this rifle. I mean, this in and of itself, designing this, is pretty incredible and has a tremendous amount of adjustability. So in order to get it where you can adjust your length of pull, which is how far back this is, that's really relative to how long the arms are that you have. So you can actually measure from your elbow up to your wrist or up to your trigger is actually what it is, and kind of figure out what that distance should be, or you can kind of eyeball it and see what's comfortable. So I know that I'm pretty long guy here, so I'm gonna stretch it out here about there. Now in order to do this adjustment, you do have to both release the lever that raises and adjusts your cheek piece and also this lever back here. But the beauty of this thing is it's all quick release. You don't have any tools at all or don't need to use any tools. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that about right there, lock it down, get behind it, and see how I like it. Actually feels a little long to me, so I'm gonna cinch it up a little bit more. That doesn't feel too bad. I'm gonna go halfway in between, if I can. Okay, I like that. Now I can take and adjust the cheek piece here, play around with it. Once again, I'm doing the old close my eyes trick, so I'm getting behind the rifle, getting comfortable, putting my face down, opening my eyes, and I should have a nice clear picture. I like to push my face down where the stock rests right underneath my cheekbone, because that's very repeatable. And right now when I do that, I do have to pick my head up a little bit in order to get it with no black in my scope. I'll raise it up a bit. Once again, close my eyes, open them, perfect. So one thing you can do now is you could take and draw a little line on there and make sure that's your little spot. So if you ever adjust it for anybody else, you're good to go. So now I've got my length of pull set, I've got my cheek piece set, I'm good to go. We can start firing some shots. All right, so let's go ahead and get this kind of bore sighted, if you will. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. There's a lot of tools you can buy. There's little bullets with lasers out of them. There's things you can stick in the end of the barrel that have a laser on them. That can certainly do the job. You don't have to buy those things though. What I like to do is just have like a big target like this, that big black piece of paper, look through the bore of the rifle, get that lined up to the piece of paper, then look through my optic and try to adjust down from there, get it pretty close, and then I take and shoot at something rather large like a rock on a berm, and then kind of fine tune it there, and then get it to paper, fine tune it there. You can also shoot like a poster board size, see if you can get it that way. This is just one of the many ways to do it. Line up my bore, and I definitely am off to the right, so I'm going to come left. Double check here. Get moved a little bit. So there, I've got it. Centered. So my zero stop is stopping me. So let's try that and see where that gets us, and we'll go from there. So it's really difficult to see here because of the focus, but you can see that I can look right through the barrel, and you'll notice that green, you know, if I get it nice and lined up, you can see that little green dot. It's really not going to come into focus because it's such a small area. But that's really what bore sighting is, looking right down the bore. I've got it set up right on that green target, downrange, as you can see down there. And then I come up here to my scope. This is going to be really tricky too. And you can see there that I've got it pretty darn close. Okay, so that's really rudimentary, basic bore sighting. All right, so now that we've got the rifle bore sighted, we're going to go ahead and pick out a rock on the side of the hill and kind of bring it in a little tighter, and then we'll get over here on paper. So once again, I like to pick a berm like here at the range. We've got these huge, probably 25-foot tall berms or 20-foot tall berms, and I've just picked a rock right in the middle. I know I'm not going to shoot over the berm, and if I hit low, it's fine. I want to pick a rock. Doesn't really matter the size, but you want to make sure you have a lot of space around it with dirt where you can you know, see the impact. It doesn't really even have to be a rock. It could be, you know, anything out there that you can identify. So we'll go ahead and take a shot of the rock and see where we're at, narrow it in, then we'll get on paper. Once again, we're shooting these 108 grain Hornady ELD match, factory ammo. So we want to make sure that we're nice and level, which we are, and pick on that rock. So using my reticle now, I can see where I hit. I was about 4 to 4.5 minutes to the left, or sorry, about 4 minutes to the left, and it looked like I was about 4 minutes high. So let's go ahead and we're going to come down 4, and we're going to come over to the right. We're going to come over through, I'm going to go 4. It might be a little much, but we'll see. All right, nice and level. Still off there to the left. So let's come over. I'm going to go another 1, 2, 3 to the right. And I'm going to come down another minute, maybe even a minute and a half. I kind of missed that one. Was that, like that was left as well still? So. This doesn't want to come over to the right, does it? Let's go. That's kind of odd. All right. Okay. And that, got it. I think, hit the rock. Split that rock in two. You could hear it. So we ended up coming down about 6 minutes, and I think we came over man, like 9 minutes or something. So now we know that we're within, you know, rock was about yay big, so we know we're pretty close. So we'll go ahead and take a shot here at 100 yards on the paper. So one of the things we're using for this is target vision, which is a really cool camera system. This particular one is their ELR 2 mile. And what it's going to do is it's actually giving me, if I can erase the little marks there, it's actually showing me my target. So I've got the camera down there, it's broadcasting and then broadcasting to my iPad. So the other cool thing about this is I can actually come in and hit the paper and number my shots. So I'm going to put this up here and I'll be able to see my shots and number them. And I can also record. So I'm going to go ahead and hit record. And now I'm recording. And of course we've also got a GoPro down there as well. We like to use as many cameras as we possibly can. All right, so I've got a nice big fresh piece of paper with a sticker bullseye in the middle. I'm going to go ahead and increase my magnification. So I'm going to have to adjust my parallax, make sure it's good and clear. Nice comfortable position. All right, we can see that we are about a quarter minute left, and I'd say about a half minute low. So I'm going to zoom in here. Oops. Number 1. So what did I say there? I said a quarter minute left and about, I'd say it's a minute low. So we're going to come up a minute and we're going to go left about a quarter. Yeah, about a quarter. All right. Okay, that one didn't feel like it broke real clean. So our elevation is perfect, but we're about half a minute left. So we're going to come back to the right. I'm going to do a half minute to the right. Come in here and mark that second shot. And RPR has this interesting feature where once the mag is out, if you try to close the bolt, it won't let you. It's kind of annoying. I really don't like it at all because when you try to single feed it, it's a real pain in the butt. You just really can't single feed it very well, which is sort of obnoxious when you're a precision rifle shooter. Running the Magpul mags that came with the rifle. Make sure we're good and level. All right, so that time we were just barely a quarter minute high and another quarter, maybe half to the left. Zoom in there and mark it. So we were a quarter high. I may leave the elevation and just adjust the windage. We're so close that you're almost going to just cause yourself grief by adjusting very much. Well, I can't see that one, so it must be really, really, really bad or really, really, really good. And I think it's probably really, really, really good. Jeremy's on the spotting scope. Can you see it at all?
I couldn't.
I think it's through the black. It's just about has to be. But it's hard to say. So why don't we run down there and take a look here. Make the rifle safe and we'll head down range. So here are at SHOT Show 2016. Got Todd McGee from Dead Air Armament.
Hi, I'm Kelly McMillan here.
We're gonna give it a shot right now.